We are currently living through a silent, invisible cataclysm that is reshaping the very fabric of human existence, yet it remains largely unspoken in the public sphere. It is not a war fought with ballistics or gunpowder, but a biological and spiritual siege laid upon the very essence of masculinity. If you look closely at the statistical data emerging from the Western world and increasingly globalized societies, the numbers regarding male physiology are not just concerning, they are terrifying, painting a picture of a gender in freefall. Since the 1,970 average male testosterone levels have plummeted by approximately 1% per year, which is not a minor fluctuation but a biological collapse, meaning a young man standing in the prime of his life today has roughly 20 to 30% less testosterone flowing through his veins than his grandfather did at the exact same age. We are objectively, chemically, and physiologically weaker than the men who came before us. Simultaneously, we are witnessing a socio-sexual phenomenon known as the Great Sex Recession, where data from the General Social Survey and extensive studies reported by major publications indicate that young men are having less actual, physical sex today than at any point in recorded modern history. Yet, here lies the darker paradox. For while real-world intimacy has collapsed, these same men are consuming more sexual content than any generation of human beings that has ever walked the earth, flooded with artificial erotica, yet starved of genuine connection. Society looks at this phenomenon, this mass sedation of men, and draws the completely wrong conclusion because mainstream media, fueled by a profound misunderstanding of masculine psychology and biological reality, often villainizes male sexuality itself. We are constantly bombarded with narratives telling us that male sexual energy is inherently aggressive, predatory, or toxic, and we are told that the drive for conquest, the urge to pursue, and the fire of libido are relics of a barbaric past that need to be medicated, shamed, or socialized into submission. This is a lie. And it is a lie that is effectively castrating the modern male spirit because sex is not the enemy. To view sexual energy as the problem is to misunderstand the fundamental engine of human existence. For this energy is the prima materia, the primal material of the alchemist, and the biological imperative that built the pyramids, fueled the artistic explosions of the Renaissance, and drives the relentless innovation of Silicon Valley. It is a sacred nuclear force designed by evolution for the high-stakes purposes of the creation of life and the profound, pair-bonded connection that heals and stabilizes the human psyche. The crisis of the modern man, characterized by a pervading lack of purpose, soaring suicide rates, and an epidemic of hollow depression, is not caused by the presence of sexual desire, but by the mismanagement, industrialization, and corruption of that desire. We are not collapsing as a civilization because we are too sexual. We are collapsing because we have allowed our most potent, life-giving energy to be hijacked, commercialized, and sold back to us in cheap, digital fragments, trading the nuclear fire of creation for the momentary spark of a pixelated screen. The question we must ask is not how to suppress this drive, but rather what happens to a civilization when its men lose respect for the very energy that creates life. When you take a force designed to create dynasties, conquer nations, and protect families, and you waste it on a tissue or a stranger, you are not just losing biological fluids, you are hemorrhaging your potential and bleeding out the very essence that makes you a man. To truly understand the gravity of this issue, we must strip away the modern moralizing, the political correctness, and the soft language to look at the neurobiology and the raw physics of the male body through the lens of brutal reality. Sexual energy is not a metaphor or poetry, but a measurable, physiological resource that dictates hierarchy in the animal kingdom, where the male with the highest drive and the capability to harness it becomes the leader of the pack. In humans, this translates to what scientists call the winner effect, where a man utilizing his testosterone correctly, driven by the urge to conquer and provide, experiences a fundamental alteration in his brain chemistry that makes him more risk-tolerant, more focused, more resilient to pain, and more dominant in his environment. Napoleon Hill, in his seminal study of 500 of the most successful men in American history, coined the term sexual transmutation, which for decades was treated as mystical self-help theory. But modern neuroscience has now caught up to what the ancients and the early industrialists knew intuitively. The drive for sex utilizes the dopaminergic pathway, which is the exact same neural circuitry used for motivation, goal-seeking, and ambition, meaning the brain does not distinguish between the drive to conquer a mate and the drive to conquer a business goal because the fuel is identical. When a man feels the surge of arousal, his body is not just asking for release, but is flooding him with a potent cocktail of neurochemicals, including testosterone, the driver of effort and muscle synthesis, dopamine, the molecule of more that drives the pursuit of the unattainable, and adrenaline, which provides focus and alertness. Nature designed this cocktail to push a man through impossible obstacles, to hunt dangerous game, and to fight off rivals to find a mate, serving as high-octane fuel and rocket propellant for life. Successful men, whether they are elite athletes, Fortune 500 CEOs, or visionary artists, are almost invariably men with exceptionally high libidos, not men who have no desire, but men who have mastered the flow of that desire. The difference between a CEO and a destitute sex addict is not the amount of energy they possess, but the direction of the flow, as the high-achieving man uses that agitation and inner fire to build an empire by sublimating the urge and creating a legacy instead of just a biological release. Conversely, we must look at the biological cost of cheap ejaculation, a concept known in Ayurvedic medicine and traditional Chinese medicine as the loss of ojas or jing, the vital essence. While Western medicine initially dismissed this as folklore, modern nutrient analysis confirms that seminal fluid is a rich concentration of zinc, citric acid, fructose, acid, phosphatase, and lecithin, making it the most nutrient-dense fluid the male body can produce, created at great metabolic cost. More important than the nutrients is the neurochemical aftermath, as the postcoital neurochemical state is one of sedation, where the body releases a massive spike of prolactin to counteract dopamine. Prolactin is the satiety hormone whose evolutionary purpose is to make you sit still, rest, and stop hunting because nature assumes you have succeeded in reproduction. If a man is chronically inducing this prolactin spike through artificial means like masturbation or meaningless sex, he is keeping himself in a state of perpetual chemical sedation, chemically signaling to his brain that the mission is accomplished and he can sleep now. However, he hasn't reproduced, he hasn't conquered, and he hasn't built anything. He is merely tricking his own biology. A man who respects this energy understands that it is his vital force and the battery of his will, and to drain the battery daily for a moment of cheap pleasure is to face the battles of life with an empty weapon, entering the arena of the world already defeated by his own hand. This brings us to the most widespread and destructive addiction of the 21st century, which is high-speed internet pornography and the masturbation habits it fuels. Let's put aside the common argument that it is natural, for there is absolutely nothing natural about a man sitting alone in a dark room, hunched over, staring at a 4K screen, watching other people mate while swiping through hundreds of potential partners in a matter of minutes. This is a superstimulus, a digital weapon grade engineered to hack the male brain, similar to the phenomenon discovered by ethologist Nico Tinbergen in the 1940 seconds. Tinbergen found that if you presented a bird with a fake egg that was bigger, brighter, and more colorful than its real egg, the bird would ignore its own living offspring and try to sit on the fake, giant egg because the artificial stimulus hijacked the instinct. Pornography is the giant fake egg for the male brain, brighter, faster, and more accessible than real intimacy. And just like the bird, modern men are abandoning the real pursuit of life to sit on a digital lie. The male brain is evolutionarily wired for the Coolidge effect, a biological mechanism that renews sexual interest when a new female is introduced, which in the wild would happen rarely, but on a porn site, a man meets a new partner every time he clicks a thumbnail, allowing him to theoretically mate with 50 women in an hour. This causes a massive, unnatural flood of dopamine to the nucleus accumbens, the brain's reward center, comparable to the spike seen in morphine or cocaine usage, and the brain is simply not built to handle this load. Over time, this leads to the accumulation of delta phos B, a molecular switch that creates a state of established addiction and desensitization, resulting in a numbness where regular life becomes devastatingly boring, and real women, with their flaws and normal pacing, become unarousing because the real world cannot compete with the fantasy. This leads to porn-induced erectile dysfunction, where urologists are reporting a skyrocketing number of men under 30 who cannot maintain an erection with a real partner because their software is corrupted and their brain requires the extreme, voyeuristic shock of the screen to send the signal for blood flow. Perhaps the darkest truth is the development of the beta mindset. For when you masturbate to porn, you are fundamentally practicing voyeurism, identifying as the guy in the corner watching another male have sex with the woman you desire, subconsciously training your psyche to be a spectator in life rather than a participant. The most dangerous aspect is the theft of motivation, scientifically known as the disruption of the reward prediction error. Normal motivation works on a loop where you work hard, overcome a challenge, and then get a reward. But masturbation shortcuts this loop by allowing you to click a button and get the reward immediately. By short-circuiting this process, you destroy your capacity for delayed gratification, eliminating the drive to go to the gym, approach a woman, build a business, or learn a difficult language, because you can get the ultimate biological reward with zero effort. Masturbation doesn't just release tension, it dissolves ambition, taking the aggressive energy you need to confront the world and flushing it down the toilet. If masturbation is a solitary implosion, then promiscuity and adultery are fragmentation grenades that destroy the soul from the outside in. We live in the age of hookup culture, facilitated by algorithms like Tinder and Bumble that gamify human connection, and society tells men that a high body count is a metric of success, a sentiment often echoed by red pill communities, promoting the idea that sleeping with as many women as possible is the ultimate display of status. However, we must look at the psychosocial reality and the deeper energetic costs, particularly regarding the vasopressin trap. While women bond primarily through oxytocin, men bond heavily through vasopressin, and scientific studies on pair bonding suggest that repeated sexual novelty without emotional attachment can downregulate these receptors. In plain English, the more you sleep around meaninglessly, the harder it becomes for you to ever fall in love, trust a woman, or feel satisfied in the future, biologically damaging your ability to form a family unit and training your brain to view women as disposable utilities rather than partners, which ultimately leaves you alone in a crowded room. From a metaphysical and Jungian perspective, Intimacy is an exchange of psychic material because you cannot merge bodies without merging energies, creating what is often called a soul tie. When a man engages in promiscuity, he is not just having fun, but is opening his energetic field to the chaos, trauma, and emotional baggage of strangers, dipping his soul into waters he has not tested. Consider the modern dating roster phenomenon in major cities where men report dating burnout, feeling scattered, hollow, and cynical because they have fragmented their attention. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "He who is everywhere is nowhere, and a man chasing new women every weekend is a man who has no center, leaking energy in a dozen different directions and constantly remaining in hunt mode rather than build mode." Adultery is even more destructive due to the massive cortisol load it places on the system, as living a double life requires massive cognitive resources to track lies, manage schedules, and suppress guilt. This creates a background hum of chronic stress, a low-level fight or flight mode that never ends, which explains the downfall of powerful men who build empires only to destroy them for a fleeting affair because the shadow took over. Adultery creates a fissure in a man's integrity, and you cannot be a man of your word in business if you are a liar in your bed, as the subconscious mind knows you are a fraud, eroding self-esteem from the inside out and leading to imposter syndrome and eventual collapse. Every casual encounter that lacks depth is a withdrawal from your spiritual bank account, trading your sovereignty for a moment of friction. The ultimate consequence of abusing sexual energy is not just physical weakness, it is the onset of mental illness and the dominance of the shadow self. We are witnessing a rise in what early psychoanalysts might have called erotic neurosis, but today we see it in the explosion of the simp economy and parasocial relationships. Consider the billions of dollars generated by platforms like OnlyFans, money that is not coming from wealthy patrons of the arts, but largely from lonely, average men who are desperate for a crumb of attention. This is the shadow self in total control, the repressed, dark aspects of the personality that Carl Jung warned about. For when a man represses his need for real connection and replaces it with digital addiction, the shadow grows. We see the rise of findom, or financial domination, a fetish where men derive sexual pleasure from being financially drained by women who despise them, representing the ultimate inversion of the masculine imperative, where instead of being the provider and protector, the man becomes the prey who pays for the privilege of his own emasculation. This is not a kink, but a pathology, a symptom of a man who has completely lost touch with his own worth and power, his psyche screaming in pain and trying to buy validation because it feels unworthy of earning it. The abuse of pleasure creates a chaotic, unusable mind because neuroscience shows that when dopamine baselines are messed up due to constant edging, porn, or novelty seeking, the brain loses the ability to focus on slow, difficult tasks. We see a generation of men diagnosed with adult ADHD, anxiety, and debilitating brain fog who cannot read a book or sit in silence because they are irritable and mood swing prone. This is not always genetic, but often behavioral, as the brain is screaming for the next hit, rendering a man in this state easily manipulated and a slave to his impulses. He becomes the hungry ghost of Buddhist philosophy, a creature with a giant belly and a tiny mouth, eating constantly but never satisfied. Internet culture has even coined terms for the trance-like state of excessive masturbation known as gooning, where men enter a hypnotic state, losing hours of time completely dissociated from reality with their brains shut off. This is a terrifying surrender of consciousness, a voluntary lobotomy, and a rejection of the burdens of being a man. If you cannot control your lust, you cannot control your life. And as Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The man who blames fate or society for his failure while secretly masturbating 3 times a day is living in a delusion, chained in the cave and staring at shadows on the wall while refusing to turn around and face the light. We arrive at the synthesis where the verdict of biology, psychology, and history is clear. Sex itself is not the problem. Sex is the mechanism of life. And when engaged incorrectly with intention, with love, and with a partner who respects you, it is a regenerative act that boosts testosterone, lowers cortisol, and strengthens the bond that forms the foundation of a strong family, acting as the union of masculine and feminine polarities that creates a battery of power. The problem is the container, the modern man's inability to contain this fire, and the habits that destroy him. Masturbation is the theft of ambition. Pornography is the corruption of the mind. Promiscuity is the dilution of the soul. And adultery is the fracture of integrity. You are an energetic system generating a finite amount of vital force every day. And you have a choice in how you spend it. You can blow it on pixels, leak it into strangers who don't know your middle name, and burn it up in the anxiety of a double life, feeding the algorithm and making yourself weak. Or you can harness it by transmuting that sexual frustration into the gym to construct a body of iron, pouring it into your business to build an empire of value, focusing it on your studies to sharpen your mind, and saving that energy for a woman who actually deserves your vulnerability to create a bond that withstands the storm. The dark truth is that the system is designed to drain you because a society of men who are addicted to porn, docile, low testosterone, and easily distracted is a society that is easy to control. They want you weak. They want you clicking, paying, and scrolling. And they want you to be a consumer of life rather than a creator of it. Rebellion is not burning down a building. Rebellion is self-mastery. Rebellion is keeping your phone out of your bedroom. Rebellion is looking a woman in the eyes, not at her body parts, and rebellion is retaining your seed until you decide with a clear mind that it is time to create or connect. Sexual discipline is the highest form of self-love, the refusal to settle for the cheap imitation of happiness, and the decision to stop feeding the demons in the dark so that you can walk as a king in the light. This is Dark Truth Therapy, where we explore the shadows because that is where the gold is buried, offering not comforting lies but the scalpel of truth to cut out the cancer of mediocrity. If you are ready to stop being a slave to your biology and start being the master of your destiny, like this content to signal the algorithm that you want the truth, and subscribe to Dark Truth Therapy right now. The journey from broken to whole starts with the discipline of your energy. So welcome to the deep work.